Podcast. He's Aaron. I'm Chris, and we're here to talk about our beloved Minnesota Vikings. And beloved rolls off the tongue so well this week. Finally, our Minnesota Vikings got a dub. They got off the schneid in a convincing win, 30-17, over a team that's really just owned us. Let's be honest. I mean, we hadn't played at home in a while. The last time we had gotten beat in the playoffs, or we beat ourselves, however you want to look at it. But it is a must win. We said it last week. We got to win. We had 3 home games, this being the first, Cleveland and Detroit. So you just had to win. If you wanted to try to make the playoffs, you had to. And it's funny how percentages work. From 0 for 2 to 1 to 2, the chances went up like 28% or something like that. A lot of people get a little too focused in on that. It's like, let's just let this stuff play out a couple of weeks. But it is good, no doubt about it, man. Everything went smoothly. Of course, had a great game. We saw a nice combination of Jefferson and Cousins this game, and a variety of receivers in general. The third down efficiency. We'll talk about Kubiak and how he's kind of just slid right into this offensive coordinator role, the offensive line, once the defense got their stuff together, because it looked ugly at 17-7. I was like, oh boy, we were just talking off air. Here we go. We're going to have to score 30-something again. It's going to be 34-31 or something. But they got their stuff together. They ended up getting a lot of pressure. Just in general, man, it was nice to be the team wearing down the other side. In those, we'll talk about the drives in the second half, man. That was really, really impressive. Some of the numbers of the defense, once they got their act together, is pretty phenomenal. So, and of course, the home crowd, even Jefferson, who went to LSU, who, that's known as Death Valley. It's known as a variety of things. That place still makes some noise. College kids and alumni and a bunch of other folks. He was like, whoa, okay, this is a little different level. So it was nice to have the home crowd in there, no doubt about it. The late afternoon, like everybody says, to get those extra couple hours of marination, we'll say. So, of course, we'll break down this great win, and then we'll look to next week with the Cleveland Browns coming into town, led by a familiar face for Vikings fans. We'll see how that goes. And then, we'll close the show on an unfortunate vibe here for the Gophers. Just stunned at their loss. I still can't believe as a 30.5-point favorite to lose that game. But hey, we're not going to let that drag us down now. This is a Minnesota Vikings podcast first and foremost. So we'll get into it in just a second here. But if this is the first time listening to this Vikings podcast, welcome. It streams live and is available in a whole lot of different places. You could check it on the blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope radio page. You don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope and download the show there directly or listen to the browser if you don't want to. Like I said, it's available in a lot of places. You can find the show under the Rope-A-Dope radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, a variety of other places. Also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. And, of course, on Living in Loserville, the Spreaker page that Aaron started last year. That's Living in Loserville on Spreaker. It's Vikings heavy, but throughout, the year, we go Vikings, Timberwolves, Gophers, the whole nine. And, of course, Aaron has his own podcast on there as well. One more thing, if you're thinking about cutting the cord or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called DirecTV Stream. Prices start as low as $69.99. The best of live TV and on demand. All your apps in one place with access to over 7,000 apps. No annual contract, no hidden fees. If you upgrade to the Choice or Ultimate package, you get 3 months of HBO Max. And you also get to enjoy regional sports networks with no additional fees. If you go all the way up to the premium, that comes with HBO Max and Showtime already included. That's DirecTV Stream. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host. We talked about it last week, how obviously this was a must-win, and we got the dub. First and foremost, how you doing on this late afternoon. I'll still call it late afternoon, early evening, Monday night, a night after the Vikings got the W.
I'm doing well. Got the W is correct. I was a little worried, like you said, when we got to that 17-7 mark, and the defense was just a sieve. But this seems like they got it together throughout the second half of the game, and then that's good. And we'll talk about what that might mean for the future later. But Cousins and Jefferson, a good connection. I think he had 7 catches and a touch. So I mean that connection seems to be holding up pretty good, and third down efficiency and so on. Offensively, I think that game was kind of carried by the offense in many ways, although the defense did show up in the second half.
Yeah, and it was something we talked about maybe the last half of the season or something, how this offense was showing us strides to the point where we passed to run later. And we have a lot of people in the box while we're trying to, all of a sudden they're starting to get out of the box, having to protect the pass as well. Then we hit them with the run. So we've definitely carried over from last year, which not knowing the left tackle scenario, how that would play out. And obviously it's not like sturdy and strong, but it's looking better than we kind of thought. The offensive line deserves a lot of credit, especially that interior. But yeah, like you said, I mean, early on, Metcalf had like 4 catches, had a touchdown. It's 7-zip. Now, the Vikes did come back, and Conklin got that TD. He had a nice first down catch on that drive to make it 7-7. Matson had a 20-yard run. He freaking stepped up as well. But, they come right back, get a field goal. Vikings 3 and out. I think the only 3 and out of the game, which, that's a surprise. That's something the last few years we've had issues with. Then they come back, 6 play, 76-yard drive, capped off by a Carson run, 30 yards, 17-7, dude. And I'm like, we rarely give runs like that. Now, I did see the Saints game, okay? But you know what I'm saying. Normally under Zimmer's defense, we rarely do that. But when it's 17-7, man, I was really starting to freak out. It's really, I heard people at the bar talking about, Zimmer, man, Zimmer's defense just not the same, and he's got to be out, man. He might be out, in a few weeks if this stays up. I mean, it looked pretty damn bad, down 10 points sometime in the second quarter, man.
It did look bad, and on that run, like you said, I mean, we kind of all blocked out that Saints game, and for good reason. But I don't think Kamara had very many long runs on that. It was a lot of like from the 5-yard line stuff. But he did put some 20-yarders in and stuff like that. But like we mentioned a little bit off air that the sort of Kendricks picking the wrong gap. He didn't really. He kind of hinted at the wrong gap and kind of ducked his head in and then realized it was going outside, and that kind of threw everything off. And then Carson's a lot faster than he looks, and so he just kind of tore down the sideline. Got in the end zone. But yeah, that was at that point you're thinking to yourself, well, what is this defense? It's been 3 weeks now. They should have something more together, and then we're supposed to stop the run with the 2 big guys we got, and that didn't seem to help. But I guess in one of the post press conferences, Zimmer said that everybody's kind of playing hero ball and trying to make big plays and not stretching their jobs a little more than they needed to. And in the second half they sort of got back to just doing their job and depending on the other guy, which you would think that would be something you'd come out of the gate with. But, if they can find a way to start the game like they started that second half with this offense, you're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Vikings did come back. Nice, I think it was like a 23-yard screen pass to Matson. The screen game was definitely in there. Over almost a 6-minute drive, perfect pass. Thielen caught it right, got hit. I think it was a penalty. I'm not sure if that should have been a penalty. It looked live like it did, but when you start to see angles, you're like, I'm not sure he hit him I guess he was just aiming with the head. I don't know, but it was a perfect pass and catch for the touchdown. Thielen is Mr. Red Zone. And so you're like, okay, but then they drove right back. The tight end had a catch and run for like 39 yards. That Disley, it's like, oh boy, here we go again. But then luck was on our side, Aaron, because they, not the Vikings, not us, they missed a field goal. And next thing you know, it's heavy Matson. We have a nice drive. capped off by a route that was just ugly and a catch that may have been uglier. And I mean that in a great way by Jefferson. Put us up 21-17. You know what I liked about that drive? He had that drop, and we went right back to him 2 times in a row. And like you said earlier, they're really starting to, well, I guess continue what they had going last year. Them two really had it cooking. But I loved how he dropped the ball. Okay, fine. I'll go make 2 harder catches to make up for it. Up 21-17. I still felt, though, that it was going to be, some kind of, okay, we both got to be in the 30s type deal. But I did like how we went right back to Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do that. It's probably not, it's easier said than done, I suppose. But Jefferson has a tendency to catch with the body sometimes, and it works a lot of the times, and sometimes it doesn't. I think that's what that drop is sort of caused by. He didn't grab it with his hands, but like you said, he'll come back and redeem himself with great catches. I thought that catch in the end zone was pretty good. Had to contort his body a little bit and get up high and grab it. And, he's going to do that, and Kirk has trust in him, so he's going to go back to him. I don't know if he doesn't really have another choice except for maybe KJ Osborne, but everybody says Kirk throws the ball where it's got to go regardless of who's there. And, a lot of times that's Jefferson, and you're right about Thielen in the red zone. I mean, all he does is catch touchdowns at this point. And it was a nice catch as well. So, I mean, the passing game seems to be picking up, and it's coming out of various formations, not just the 2 tight end sets that we were so accustomed to. And that kind of leads into our thoughts on Kubiak and the play calling. I mean, there was a lot of wringing of hands prior to the season about just how well he would do as the OC. But 3 games in, I'm pleasantly surprised, and I got to give him credit. Not only is he calling good games, but with the mixture of the new formations and what we're seeing with 3 wides, 4 wides, empty sometimes. We saw inverted wishbone. We saw a lot of different things, and he's melding all that together for a successful offense. And obviously the third down efficiency is, part of that.
Yeah, Conklin even, we were wondering, okay, we're going to have Irv Smith as our, a third down and 3 wide receiver sets or 4 wide receiver sets, and we're all pumped for it. Obviously, hopefully Irv comes back fully, but Conklin was lined up in a 3 and even on a 4 wide receiver set in that great, pick play that was so natural that the dude actually kind of ran into him too. He didn't know where he was. Thielen kind of just ran through the guy, but didn't go out of his way to pick him. He just played it off perfect, which left Conklin wide open. He had a great day. And just looking at that, they had, I think, 4 different. Yeah, so the leader receiving, Jefferson, 9-18 or 118 for a tutty. But we had 4 other guys, Matson, Thielen, and Conklin, that had 6 or above. That's freaking huge. And like you said, the third down, efficiency. I mean, that was a thing of beauty right there. And what stood out to me, we were talking about this just a second ago. I mean, 9-14, is great on that. We held them the 3 of 8, but 20 first down passes. When we got our stuff going, it's usually about half and half generally, let's say under Zimmer. But to have 20 first down passes, and you weren't playing from way behind. Sure, we got down by 10 early, but it's not like the whole game was from behind like some of these other games. So that really stood out to me. But going back to that Kubiak thing, you're right. The formations, the screen game, it just seems like there's more available short options. The ball's coming out a little quicker. There's a lot more 3 or 5 step drops. We're not just relying on these long, deep balls. It just seems like there's always an option to go to. And, maybe it is everybody kind of, he has been here this whole time for the system. So that does help. And that did give us an advantage coming into this year. But you still don't know how he's going to do when he actually has to, do the play calls. But when you look at the second half, now we could definitely nitpick, a drive. If one of those 3 long drives could have been a touchdown, that would have been great, and that probably would have put the game out of reach earlier. But other than that, 16 play drive, 50 yards, 8 26, 11 play drive, 70 yards, 5 minutes, and then 12 play, 88 yards, 7 minutes. I mean, that's how you know, slowly but surely wreck a team. I mean, what 3 possessions, and to carry that all the way till about, let's see, under 5 minutes, that impresses shit out of me.
And, at the end of the game, Kirk threw 38 passes. And while you're watching the game, it seemed much more balanced than that as far as running and passing. And I think he was 30 for 38 was the line on that, which is amazing in itself. But to throw that many times, and like you said, the conversions by passing on third down, it's just kind of a flip of what we usually are. It's a lot of running the ball, third and short. And in a drive like that, you'd think you did a lot of that, but a lot of that was run the ball, maybe a throw on second, didn't work out. And so then you're, 3rd and 8 and you throw the ball and it's successful. I mean, these are things that don't normally happen offensively that kind of popped out in this game. And the offensive line is I don't know what to say about it. We cried for league average, and I think Pro Football Focus had them at 16, which is league average for the week. And I'm so impressed by, like you said, the interior of the line with Udo, Cleveland, and Bradbury's even, he's still getting lifted, but he's found a way to kind of get in the way a little bit more. And he faced a big nose tackle and was able to hold down. So I think a lot of this has to do with possibly the new offensive line coach. Maybe the guys have come together under O'Neill a little bit, but it's allowing this offense to do many things that we just are not used to seeing, especially under like a Dennison line, which I think he's still involved in some way. But I think it's a night and day difference in this offensive line, not just players, but the productivity. And it just allows a lot of this stuff. Madison with a great day from that offensive line, and Kurt having time in the pocket. And when he has time, I've been shaking my head at it for the last 2 seasons going, he's got enough time to do this and that. But when he has a clean pocket, we're starting to see what can be done, and it's impressive.
Yeah, and Udo really stands out, man. I mean, he's been really, really good. And we heard about the size and the athleticism, but he's only given up 4 pressures, no sacks so far. And you're right about that. Just look, and of course, it's only 3 games, so we're not going to sit there and freak out. But they are 16th right now, and their highest ranking since the year we talked about, 2017, where we were 17th. And this is just PFF, but we knew we were about a middle of the line in a probably a better running block team then, but this line has plenty of time to develop. It's very young. The offense in general is like one of the youngest, if not the youngest in the league, but, grading 27th, 29th last year. Right now, the grades are in, early anyway. So, yeah, let's hope that keeps happening. They're going to have rough days. There's just no way around that. You know what I mean? And we still haven't necessarily played like the most dominant defense that we still got to look for and see how we look in those games. But just going back to those second halves. So I marked this time right at the beginning of the 15-minute mark of the fourth quarter. We were up 24-17, had the ball, and had those 2 other drives. And we're kind of right in the middle of one. And at that time, Matson had 16 carries for 62 yards. Overall, we had 76 yards and 20 carries. And 3.8 is not good, but you're still running. You're still gaining yards. At that time, we had thrown 33 times, right? Then, I screenshot that thinking, all right, let's see how this goes. At the 4:31 mark, it's 30-17. Matson has 22 and buck 10 and 5, per average, and we're up to a 135 at that point, 4.7 clip, and we've only thrown the ball 4 or 5 other times. So I mean, that really shows you to set up that pass to wear down a defense like that. That happened to us so many times last year. That really tells a story in general. And Cousins is, on third down, for instance, he was 8 of 10, and had six first downs. 8 of 10 on third downs, which is huge. And back to that offensive line. He's able to step up in the pocket at some point. And then when you get so much pressure, right, it's you start to let go of the ball earlier. Say, you know what, I'm going to take the sack this time. I'm not going to risk it. But when that doesn't happen, your confidence builds. You don't hear footsteps anymore because after 3 or 4 games of just getting your ass kicked, most quarterbacks would be like, all right, I'm throwing this away, or I'm just going to throw to my shortest, outlet. But I think that it kind of all together, that 3rd and 4 or 5 yard play to Osborne when the blitz was there, that was one of his best throws we've seen. But over the last 13 games in general, Cousins now 32 touchdowns and only 3 INTs. Obviously, he's got, 8 this year. Him and Jefferson should obviously have another one. It should be 9, but we won't get into that too much. But yeah, man, and here's Jefferson, 101st career reception, fastest in 19 games, fastest in franchise history. But yeah, I mean, it goes back to that line as well. We can't just put it on, like you said. We've known we've had the skill talent guys, right? The skill guys for a little while now. And luckily we got Jefferson, even though we lost Diggs, luckily we got Jefferson. That was huge. But that line is starting to really come together. And like you said, when you look at those ages, man, it's pretty scary. Offensively, it's just nice that we carried this over because although this line isn't all pro, it's really showing a lot, no doubt about it, man. So it was a great second half. And then the defense stepped up too.
Yeah, not that everything's better now, but it is in a way. And you have to think back to last season, maybe the season before, and what Kirk was actually dealing with. And if you have a limited amount of time to throw the ball, and you're aware of who's in front of you blocking, you're going to be forced to make a lot of anticipation throws, a lot of, just because, like you said, you're hearing footsteps, and get the ball out. Well, then you're going to maybe overcompensate a little bit and try to get the ball quicker than even you should. And then just one thing builds on the other, and now you're starting to throw guys open in a way that more risky, which leads to interceptions and so on. So maybe if you look back a little bit and say, okay, well, let's say he's got a clean pocket, how does that change? And it's not just a clean pocket for a play, like you said. It's got to be 2 or 3 games so you can build a level of comfort, knowing, okay, well, I've got the time, or if I step up or move to the left or something, like everything we criticized him about not being good in the pocket, there wasn't really a pocket. And now that we're seeing one, knock on wood, you're starting to see him more comfortable, a little bit more decisive, able to go through his reads, able to put a good ball on somebody. And he throws a good ball. And like you said, the anticipation throw he made on that blitz, I thought, I raised my hands like, what are you doing? And then it comes down in the hands of Osborne. You're like, okay. So he knew, he said he saw a flash of purple. Right. Okay. If that's what you need, then that's what you need. But obviously they were comfortable, and it was a great play, and it really extended that drive. And, those time eating drives are very important in the way our offense runs. Zimmer wants, he loves his defense, but he wants to keep him off the field. It's a weird contradiction, but I understand, to keep him fresh and stuff. But let's talk about defense a little bit. Once they settled down, and I wouldn't say that unless I had heard Zimmer's comments. You've got great players on that defense. I think Kendricks is the leader now of that defense, and you can see him sort of putting his mark on everybody. And he had a bad play, like you said, on the big run, but that happens once a season, maybe twice to him. He's a see ball, get ball guy, and Vigil again is making it really hard to remember Anthony Barr. But we were talking a little bit off air about Cam Dantzler and the Breeland situation, and we won't get too far into it, but we're all kind of dissatisfied at Breeland, but he's taking a lot of heat being across from Peterson. And, they're just picking on him because it's an open spot there, and he's going to be tried again. And it would be nice to have Cam available with his mouth shut and ready to play, to come in and spell him, let Breeland get his mind right and maybe tag in and out of that position, if not have Cam started. But we don't know what to think of Dantzler because of, some of the things he says or tweets in this particular thing. And it's something that needs to get shored up. I think it's the weak link in the defense, and Woods has played very well. Harry is Harry. The defensive line, Tomlinson showed up this time around, and he's graded really well with Pro Football Focus the last few weeks. So he's doing his job, eating up blocks. And so that's the real defensive issue to me. Chris, can you think of any others?
No, yeah, not really. It does seem like the outside runs are, not just that one we talked about, but just in general, they're not getting a lot more up the gut like they did last year for obvious reasons. But, I still think it is the fact that it is not just the Zimmer system, but some new wrinkles and a bunch of new guys. I think we still got to, like we talked about, gelling. We're starting to see it, man. Even that first game, 6 straight stops in fourth quarter and overtime. Like, we're really starting to see it. But, yeah, just going on that, Breeland, someone tweeted this earlier. Breeland has now become the Drew Samia of cornerbacks. He remains the lowest ranked cornerback in pro football. He's 99 out of 99. You know what I mean? So wow. I think, it's pretty bad. You're right. He is getting picked on. And, the thing that I think that's why we're all kind of like put Cam in, like, let's go to Dantzler, because we did see, rightfully so, what he did like the last chunk of the season last year. He showed major improvements. And, yeah, he missed a tackle earlier this year, but he also came in and made some good plays in the end zone and on a third down and whatnot. So the one thing is, and you alluded to this early, that, in preseason he was jogging in that game. We don't know his practice habits. It doesn't sound like they're superb. And so that's part of being a young player, knowing you got to bring it every minute of practice, every day, every hour, every drill, all that boring stuff. And so, I think it's the combination of we don't know how Dantzler shows up every single day. And Breeland's just getting destroyed at times, like most times. So I think we'll see him, more times than not. Defensively, though, as far as the positives, 17 pressures, 12 hurries, got 3 sacks. And Griff even did his spin move and closed the door on it, which was dope. And defensively, we were talking about this earlier, after the first half, obviously. In the second half, 15 Seattle plays for 42 yards. That's crazy. That's insane. I just, like you said, it's a very talented defense that just needs to continue to get on the same page. Sure, they did get more scrimmage time, during practice in the preseason, but they did not get that on the field. Someone's going at you. You don't know their plays as well time. And so I think that, unfortunately, we've had to kind of learn the hard way and whatnot, but I think it's just a matter of time till it all gels. You know what I mean? It's just too much talent and too much talented coaches to be like a crappy defense. You know what I mean? I think it'll tighten up for sure.
I agree. It's not only is it talent, but it's experience. I mean, these are vets that we brought in. Pierce, Tomlinson, they seem to be doing well on the inside. That can only get better, and they come together with Hunter, Wanham, Griffin. These guys, hopefully we'll see Patrick Jones come back. I don't know if he's on IR or what it is, but he's a talented edge rusher as well. And then you have, the linebackers, which it's a depth thing, but I'm really interested in what they'll do when Barr returns, because I don't think you pull Vigil. I think you find cool things to do with Barr. I mean, that would be my choice is, find ways to get him off the edge but then we say this all the time with Barr, and he just ends up playing his spot and doing a pretty good job. But then what do you do with Vigil? And it's not like you're having an abundance of linebackers, so you've got to utilize the ones that you have. And like I said, you gel it, this thing comes together. We're going to find out a lot this coming week. I mean, Baker Mayfield and the gang are pretty good. But like you said, the crowd noise and everything, a lot of times we overrate that. But you really saw Wilson struggle a little bit with it in the second half. And he threw a couple moon balls that almost completed. That was a little bit frightening, especially the one in the end zone there that Harry got to just in time. But
they're all looking for the pick. The cornerbacks and safeties. That's a pick. That's a pick. It's like, no, we don't want that to be.
No, we don't want that pick.
I don't care what your contract says, but we don't want that as a pick.
No, but I was thinking flag on that all the way because they kept showing the replay and he's there
Mm,
just.
yeah,
But it was a
especially
bang
when it's
bang
slow
play in
motion.
real
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Yeah. But I mean that was almost completed, and then there's 3 Vikings around it. What would we say if he completed that? I mean it's a terrible lapse, especially with the amount of time that ball was in the air. But I think it'll come together. I'd like to see that with Dantzler, just because he's young, he's tall, he's lean, he's a physically a good corner. And I want to see him get his head right. So I'm a little concerned about that. Breland, and he needs a break, and I don't know what's going on there. But as far he just got to wipe the page clean and keep going. But I think you're right about the defense. I think we've said it throughout the week, and the media hasn't really caught on to it yet, but it's going to come together. I hope that we need it this next game because Cleveland's got Nick Chubb, and we'll get into that in previews, but it's going to be a tough game, both offensively and defensively, and it'll be a test for us to see where we're actually at, particularly how the offensive line handles their defensive line.
That's a good point. And they, so far, have done a pretty good job stopping the run. Now, they did, they went neck and neck with the Chiefs, ended up on the short end, but still, it was only like 32-29 or something like that. And I bring them up just because they don't run the ball a whole lot, So some of their stats could be skewed. But speaking of with fans in attendance, this comes from Dustin Baker, who's a great follow on Twitter, by the way. The Vikings are undefeated at US Bank Stadium when they score 21 points or more, 21-0. And then just having a lead into the fourth quarter since 2015. We all know the playoffs there. 43-0 when we start the fourth quarter with the lead. Talk about defense, grind it down type stuff. That's an incredible stat, dude. I knew it was good, but damn. But yeah, even the defense last year improved minorly. I'll give it that. But even by the end of the year, we were 10th. I think we ended up 10th in third down, which it didn't feel like that when we're watching the games. Of course, we gave us so many big plays run in past that they didn't need to worry about third down sometimes. But you could tell that they were making minor strides compared to what they had as far as so many people out that you got to put that into the formula and whatnot. But overall, I definitely see that it will click in general. Any other items when it comes to the first Viking victory of the year before we get into this Cleveland game?
Just good to have a victory to talk about it. Talking about the losses is obviously never fun, but the type of losses that we had to talk about were extra excruciating. So it's good to have a win. Let's try to put it together here. And now I think we'll go to predictions. And Cleveland's coming in, Chris, and it's all about Stefanski, this and that, but I'm not so worried about Stefanski. I'm worried about Nick Chubb. I'm worried about Myles Garrett. I'm worried about Jadeveon Clowney. I'm worried about our true test for this offensive line. We've been saying they've been playing very, very well, but who have they faced? Seattle's got a decent defensive line, but, it's nothing like what we're going to see on Sunday. And they have a good offense now. Being at home has proven, like you just said in those stats, to help. But Nick Chubb's a great runner. Baker Mayfield can throw it. They're not great at receiver, but they've got guys that can catch. They've got one of the best offensive lines. So I think it's an all-around test for this squad. It sucks to go in, 1-2, but you got to win under your belt, and that helps. But I think we're looking at a slug-it-out game here. It's just a lot of talent on the field.
Yeah, and even with Stefanski, seeing that, that Zimmer defense for so many years, even when he wasn't the coordinator, he was here since, 2006 or whatever. So, yeah, there's going to be something there as far as a tell or something that does help him in general. But, I guess he has tendencies for play call too. So, obviously Zimmer knows his offense pretty well too. So, but last week they played the Bears, and the Bears offensive line, we've been talking about our offensive line for years now. But their line is pretty bad this year. They've had some injuries just like last year, and they had 6 first downs for the whole game compared to 26. They had just the total plays 78-42. It's just unbelievable. They both had 11 drives too, but what was it? 47 total yards. 418-47. How wasn't it 70-3? That was wow. You're right though. They got a great line. Now Mayfield will put it up in the air at times. I did notice that this thing opened. It's moved a decent amount because we actually opened as just a slight favorite being the home. You get that 3.5 points, but now we are an underdog by 2 points at home. So it tells you Vegas is like, hey, Cleveland's the real deal. And it's just that sentence I just said is weird to say, but I said it, and right now it feels like the over-under 53, and like I said, 67 yards per game rushing allowed. And like you said, they can run it. They're averaging more than us running it. Now, the first game we had to pass it so much, so that plays into it as well. But they can run and pass just as well. And they've been stymied. Now, maybe it's just how the Houston, which isn't a good team, and Chicago didn't play good in that game in general. Maybe some of that plays into only giving up 210 a game through the air, which that's pretty freaking crazy. You did have, of course, Mahomes is going to go off in general, right? And he did. But so did Mayfield in that game, So I'm kind of flustered with this one. I think that we're going to, speaking of offense, we're going to have to mix in that run and pass. And then we haven't even mentioned his name, Dalvin Cook. He woke up Sunday morning not feeling that great after being questionable to play anyway. I wonder how that's going to work. I have a feeling like he's going to play because, although, don't get me wrong, Mattison really filled in wonderfully, and he's really solid. But even on a couple of plays, and this is nitpicking. This is nothing against Mattison, okay? But, man, there's a couple of plays in the open field where you're like, oh, boy, if that was Dalvin, that could have been – he'd still be running, that type of thing. We're going to need – I really kind of believe – I know we just did so well on offense without Cook this last time, but I feel like we're going to need like 15 or 16 carries of Cook. I don't expect him to come back and get 29. Maybe this Mattison game will kind of reassure the powers that be, like, hey, let's not wear down Dalvin Cook. So let's let Mattison, let's have him have 22 instead of 29 carries or something like that, touches overall. It is funny how Mattison got so many touches in that game, just like Cook. But, even if it's just a blend to having him out there, I honestly think that we need him to win this game. What do you think about that? Do you think if we don't have Cook, it's going to be tough just because he brings that extra element of there's no play there? Oh, he made a jump cut, he broke a tackle, whatever it is, that vision he has, even if it's 16 carries.
I do. I think we're going to need him because their entire roster is full of first-round picks from sucking for 15 years. And so, you're going to need exceptional talent. And on their end, they've got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. These are two guys we're going to have to face. And so to have Mattison and Cook would only help. And, this is where you see talent rise. Madison's a great runner. He's a good back. But then there's that other level, that other gear that Cook provides. And that's going to be a big force in the game. I think receiver-wise, we've got good names. Their names are sort of not so well. They got ODB and the other kid Landry. Those are pretty good receivers as well, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. So they're not terrible at the receiver if those guys come to play. But I really think it's going to be we're going to have to lean on the stadium, lean on the crowd. And I know that sounds hokey, but I don't know if Baker's been in that environment. I suppose at Oklahoma he probably ran into some loud games, but in the NFL, I haven't seen him in the stadium yet. So, yeah, get after. But sometimes that'll get a guy going, too. So you never know. And defensively, it's just, back to the Rashad Hill question. You're either going to have Clowney or you're going to have Garrett. And you've been holding up well, and I give you props for playing well the last few weeks, but Myles Garrett's a whole different breed of pass rusher, and a lot like Daniil. I think they're pretty similar. I think O'Neal can hold up if he's on Clowney or whatever. Clowney's kind of feast or famine,
Yeah,
depending on where he's at, but their interior defensive line's really good, so that's going to be a test for the guys. Linebackers, they're pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and make a pick here. I think we win at home, and only because we're at home. So I think Vegas is pretty close to right. It's not going to be 30-17. I think we're going to squeeze out a victory, maybe by as much as 3 points. A fairly high scoring game, I would think. And by high scoring, I mean, 27-24, something like that. Balanced offense on our end will help. Eating the clock will help keep their offense off the field. But that's going to be tough because they can do the same thing with their running backs. So if there was a week for this defense to gel, you got to hope it's this week to get their shit together and come out and have a really great performance. This is the week to have it. If that does happen, I could see it being a 10-point game. But, you got to go with what I've seen. And I just got to say it's going to be 27-24 Vikings. I give them the home edge.
Yeah, I'm going 27-26 is what I wrote down originally thinking about this, and that's with Cook. If we don't have Cook, we both kind of agree that I don't know, man. Unless, like you said, unless the defense just puts it all together. The thing is, Baker is feast or famine at times too. That guy will throw something up because he's got all this confidence, and you're like, wow, thank you. We're gonna need probably a pick in the red zone, a turnover somewhere in there. Definitely red zone defense in general. They're gonna move the ball. Can we stop them and hold them to field goals? I think that'll be key too. But yeah, if Cook plays 28-27 Vikes, they still didn't put it all together last week. So maybe this, like you said, is the game, the team game overall that gets it done. So we both got victories. But yeah, man, I am worried about Cook a little bit. Do you think that maybe they'll think this through a little bit more with Mattison? Because, we can talk about analytics all we want, and some of them are great, and some of our, measurements that we didn't always keep track of, so it's very useful. But one thing that stands out with sports science in general and the technology there and the advancements is they know now when a guy's worn down, female or male, when a player is worn down, the level of the percentage of, chances that you get hurt goes way up. And that's something that you're starting to see like in the NBA. All right, let's cut their minute by, even if it's 2.5 minutes in this game, they're going to be fresher. It's a long season. Wait to the playoffs. They're going to be better. And this is football we're talking about. I mean, boxing and MMA are probably the roughest sports like that. But this is football, rugby and football. I just really wish, some games you got to do it. I get it. But I hope that this Mattison game that he just had was like, hey, let's remember that we can give him anywhere from 6 to 8 to 10 carries, depending on how the game goes. Do you think this will click in, or, it's just back to, hey, let's run the ball 42 times and probably Cook's going to have it 28?
Well, you hope so. You hope it clicks in. But, here's the deal. You always hear Delvin in interviews like, he wants the ball. Yeah. And he don't care, that he always says, I'm a running back. Just give me the ball. And that's what he wants. And so you're going to have Sugarman be the one to say, hey, give him 15, 20 carries, as opposed to Cook he'll take whatever you give him. And you want that in a running back. But at the same time, like you said, with the amount of attrition that they take, you want to be able to balance that out. Now that you've got Mattison in a rhythm, you would think, okay, now we can start to split the carries a little bit. But like you said, there's that talent level. It's like, okay, well, you need an exceptional talent at running back for these amount of plays in the game to give you the best chance to win. And Cook provides that. And next thing you know, he's got 32 carries. And, but if Cook can't go, he won't go. But, that's so, if Cook can go, he will. And I guess that's the flip side of that coin. It's like you don't ask him, you're gonna have to ask the doctor because Cook will run. But my caveat to the game, Chris, is like, you think back to Mayfield at Oklahoma, and I was thinking to myself, well, let's say our crowd gets on him. Well, he's the type of dude that fires him up, and it's like, well, could that have a reverse effect on, you maybe keep the crowd quiet this week and not hype him up? Obviously that's ridiculous, but I just remember my mind goes to him sticking the flag in and center of the field. I think that was at Baylor or something. I don't know. It might have been a bigger rival, but anyways,
Yeah,
I get worried Texas. That, he kind of gets motivated from the crowd. So hopefully that doesn't take place, and hopefully just get after him. Defensive line can get after him and shake him up a little bit in the beginning of the game, make him think twice about what he's doing. But like I said, I think we squeezed this one out, but I'm only about 50-50 on that call.
Yeah, the possibility of no Cook, and then like you said, Myles Garrett, that one really stands out to me as like, oh boy, here we go. Speaking of, oh boy, here we go, this one shocked me. This one completely shocked me. Bowling Green.
It shocked everyone.
Gophers. 30.5-point spread. It's not top 10. The biggest one is 45.5 points, by the way. The top 10 goes down to like 32, I think it is. So we're probably in the top 15, top 20 worst losses on the point spread of all time, which, that's not great. That's not a great stat. It is kind of a waste that, Potts ran 27 for $141, 5 of 13, 59 yards and 2 picks by Morgan. The offensive line was just really inconsistent, coming off one of their best performances. That was a frustrating thing just alone right there. And, usually early in the seasons, this defense has just been horrendous. Well, that was not the case. I would definitely not blame it on the defense in this one. On this one, it was the offense. It was kind of a throwback to the Kill offense where you're like, what's going on here? I just can't do it. Bowling Green they didn't even get 200 total yards. They had 22 yards rushing, only 12 first downs, 2 of 14 on third down. Like, it should have just been an ugly win. And someone actually tweeted, I thought the 1983 loss to Nebraska 84-13 in the Metrodome was the worst game in Gopher history. Nope, today was worst, he said. Because Bowling Green, they hadn't beat an FBS team in a while. So that one just completely shocked me. And it's a head scratcher, man. That offense was ugly, point blank all around.
It was, and I'm just as shocked as you and everybody else. And defense held them to 14 points. You should win that game. You're just exasperated at this point. I don't want to compare it to any old losses because that's a long list of old losses. But, here we are a week ago saying, Purdue's the next test. Let's get it going, rubbing our hands together. Well, maybe 8-1. We see Iowa, and I got a feeling they were doing the same thing, and Snake rose up and bit him. And there's a lot of talk about Morgan, and do you start him, and blah, blah, blah. He started 30 games and this is what you got. And some people saying that he doesn't have enough, decision-making power and all this stuff. What I think he got beat by a scheme. I think that you couldn't figure out how to play that defense and all the intricacies of that defense as far as stunts and so on. And they didn't have time to teach the offensive line enough to pick. So they thought talent would win that one out. And it almost did, but, 2 picks by Morgan to try to get back into the game. And, Potts had a good day, but you got to figure out earlier what you want to do. Like, you want to run the ball, eat the clock, and beat these guys 17-14, then that's what you got to do. But, trying all this stuff and trying long balls, and then you lose Ottman Bell and on homecoming, and it's just a whole thing. And it's so Gopher-like that you just thought we were done with that, and it's back. It doesn't doesn't kill the whole season, but it certainly doesn't help. And now you got to go into Purdue, does similar things, spreads you out, does a lot of things. I'm not worried about the defense, strangely enough, at this point. It's what do you do about the offensive line, although they're going back to more conventional look as far as what they'll be facing. So I think that'll help out. But this is touted as one of the better offensive lines in the Big Ten, and you just got your ass handed to you by Bowling Green. I mean, what do you make of it now, Chris, when Purdue you don't look like it's going to be such a great game, and then you've got those games that seemed like could be wins later down the line are now up in question. I guess they're going to have to bounce back and get back on track, but even Fleck you could tell, was just about as shocked as we were. Maybe they went out partying. I don't know what to say about it, but it's a terrible loss, and it really kills the momentum of your season.
Not only was Tennessee able to adjust to that crazy defense that he was talking about, South Alabama, I didn't know there were as many Jaguars in Alabama, but that's the South Alabama Jaguars beat them. So I mean, if that puts in perspective, it's. I really think that it was scheme, but it was also just maybe it was some coaching in there, no doubt about it. It has to be that. That's what Fleck always says. It's all on me and stuff. But it was players too. Like they just thought they could just roll in, like you mentioned, and just kind of out-talent them. And it was, even that play that would have been that throw that he underthrew because he had to just throw it up. And one of our best, scout-wise, our best offensive lineman got beat on that play, and that was a pick. And now there wasn't many short options on that play to dump it off. So there obviously is some scheme in general. Like we just have to trust this quarterback that's had so many reps. We got to throw the ball more. We can't just rely on running the ball, and whether it's short or whatever. The one thing I'll say about Morgan, he's always been a little inconsistent, no doubt about it. But when push comes to shove, he can make some plays. And the one critical beyond that, the other critical is sometimes he has to hold the ball on those run, options, or the pass option run pass. It's like, well, it's a run pass. So at some point you got to hold the damn ball so it can actually look like an option. But yeah, man, it was bad, dude. It's about as bad. Like I would have much rather lose to Purdue on the road, like way more, because that, like we said, we were looking at that game, and now it's like, I don't know, all of a sudden we're underdogs in that game type thing. So, we'll see.
Be careful what you wish for, because we got Purdue this week, and I haven't been watching much of what they've been doing. So I know they lost Rondell Moore. I know they lost maybe their quarterback, or maybe that was a season ago. They do a lot of spreading you out and try to get you to open, get you tackle into space and so on and so forth. They test you over the top a lot, and they try to make big plays. And we've handled them fairly well throughout the last few years. So it gives me confidence that we're familiar with them enough to, and I think we have the talent to beat them, but we're on the road, Chris. And it's if you go and you beat Bowling Green by a point, 3 points or something, I'm thinking, okay, we're rolling into this thing. But now, can these kids, I think you said last year that you get a big win and you can almost bet that the next week is going to be a letdown. And that doesn't happen anywhere but in Minnesota. But you have to hope that was a wake-up call here, and you go into West Lafayette and prove something to yourselves as a team, not to mention the fans. I think we win. And I think it's a statement game to reassert themselves. I think it's at least a 10-point win in West Lafayette. I'm pretty confident that was a big wake-up call. And I don't know if it's going to be the offense or the defense that wins it for you, but I think we win, and fairly sure of it. Knock on wood. I guess a little contradictory there, but
calls it right up in the knock on wood. I was super confident, but I'm not putting any fucking money on it. No,
I figure it's going to go one. I mean, obviously it's going to go one way or the other, but I got to say Fleck's going to have them up and ready to go, as opposed to, them being down in the dumps. So I'm erring on that side, and I think they win, and I think they win pretty convincingly.
I think they do win. I do think it's kind of a reverse thing. First of all, college football, if you're playing a good team off of a huge win, that happens to a lot of programs that are just on the cusp or even solid-ass programs. Sometimes, of course, looking ahead happens too. It might be just a tight game that, oh, man, I should have done that. But there is that bounce back, like you said, the opposite way. You come off the worst game. And then and just because it's the opponent, I mean, there's no excuse of losing that game. None. Zero zilch. But there is that bounce back of, okay, I just lit my hair on fire. Like Mr. Nelson used to say back in the day at Egan High School, get that fire in the belly, and many other coaches, of course. But that just reminds me of him. But honestly, like, I do think we'll bounce back. But I do think it's going to be a grinded outside. I think it'll be a close game. I thought that was going to be the case anyway. But I'm with you. I think that that they do bounce back. So hopefully Myles Garrett can cramp up Sunday morning. And hopefully we're talking about a Gopher win as well Sunday morning. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that they'll get the W. But I guess the fact that it was a non-conference loss helps. It's just when you lose to them, it's like, wow, dude, they haven't beaten an FBS team since 2019, which is just it's asinine. But anyway, any last words before we shut this puppy on down, sir?
No, let's just hope that our biggest fear of maybe, well, it's not our biggest fear, but I don't want a 2-game losing streak on the Gopher side, and I definitely want a 2-game winning streak on the Viking side. So, let's hope Myles Garrett, wakes up with nauseous, and then Nick Chubb also has an ankle thing or something like that, or you just come out and you beat him and you win. But you got to get 2-2 out of this for the Vikes. That's the big goal.
Definitely. We'll be back next Monday. Peace.